If I would have told you just a few weeks ago that at the start of 2024, the top 3 transfer portal coaches this season would be Lane Kiffin, Deion Sanders, and Mike Elko, would you have believed me? That's right. Texas A&M has started the year off on fire. They had a slew of on-campus visits the first week of 2024, coming out of the holiday season, coming out of bowl season, coming out of the transfer portal entry season. And now that the transfer portal window has closed, we have a pool of names. These names are being recruited by various programs. Texas A&M had the bulk of their visits this past week from Wednesday throughout the weekend. And boy, was it a productive week for Texas A&M football. Mike Elko has things cooking. We don't know exactly how many commitments have been made yet, but we do know that it's over 10. It has been a seriously productive weekend for Elko and the Aggies, doing pretty much what had to be done. Now, it's very easy to get very excited about all of these commitments, and I think we should be, because Elko is doing what has to be done. But these were necessary moves. You had 70 scholarship players going into next year. You needed to add about 15 more, probably more than that, because you're probably going to lose some in the spring window. They're doing their due diligence, but I would argue that A&M has gotten some picture-perfect guys for positions of need, for areas in the depth chart of need. Yes, a lot of opposing fan bases are laughing at our class so far, saying, oh, these guys aren't even good enough to be rated. These guys are low 3-star players. Okay, fine, whatever. But what Texas A&M is doing is signing many experienced upperclassmen players. And I would argue that's a very, very important factor in today's day and age in college football, where it's a revolving door. Guys can come in, be gone after 2 years. Your high-profile guys that you're very excited about, guys who you've enjoyed watching the development of. Think of a Walter Nolan, an Evan Stewart. Well, A&M has targeted some guys that are on the second half of their college careers, guys that can have a 1-2 year ramp up into their career, slot right into the roster, and play right away. A&M's roster is currently littered with talented players. Yes, you lose a lot, but you still have a lot of guys that you're very excited about. You needed to supplement that, pretty heavily so, through the transfer portal. You didn't need superstars through the transfer portal, though signing a guy like Nick Scorton out of Purdue is an absolute priority grab that A&M executed on. You needed a defensive end. You got a high-profile starter-level defensive end. But besides that move, these are great players that can flesh out this roster and really round out the depth chart, filling in areas of need. So let's talk about the players that have committed so far. There are going to be more names that enter this list as the week goes on, the subsequent week goes on, the second week of 2024. But let's talk about the names that have been announced so far. We'll probably have to do a follow-up video to this, which I don't mind doing. It's really good stuff. We're really excited to see this stuff out of Aggie football. So guys, before we get into it, if you guys could like and subscribe, that helps me greatly. I'm trying to grow this thing, bring more of you guys and even opposing fan bases into the discussion. A lot of people like to talk trash to A&M, easy target when we're down, whatever. If you like doing that, or if you just like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. And tune into my live show. Wednesdays at 8 p.m. We have a call-in show. We can talk Aggie football live on YouTube or wherever you want to take it. You want to talk college football? You want to react to the championship game that's happening on Monday? Call in on Wednesday. We have a great time there giving you guys a platform to talk live on YouTube. So guys, let's get right into this thing. All right, so starting with last Wednesday, Nick Scorton committed to Texas A&M. He had subsequent visits to programs like Florida State. He canceled those. He committed to A&M. He's originally from Bryan, Texas. Just a huge, huge grab. One of the best in the portal. He's a top 10 portal player in this cycle. He's a defensive end. He has strong side defensive end size with edge rusher capabilities. He led the Big Ten in sacks. By now, I'm sure you guys have read up on this guy. Absolutely huge piece. Probably a day one starter because you lose Fadil Diggs. This guy probably slots right in there. You still have Malik Silla. You still have Ian White. I expect those guys to see the field a lot next year, especially on potential third down packages. But Scorton's one of your down-to-down defensive ends who can get involved in the running game and can definitely get after the quarterback. Just an absolute huge grab. One of the best in the portal. He's a top 10 portal player. Really, really excited to get this guy. And I'm already visualizing a starting defensive line next year that features him at one end, Shamar Stewart at the other end, hopefully a Shamar Turner at tackle, and then take your pick between Albert Regis, DJ Hicks, Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy at the other defensive tackle spot. I'm really liking some of these big names on this D-line. There's another experienced guy that A&M grabbed this last week that we're going to talk about in a minute, who also rounds out this rotation really well. But Nick Scorton, you kicked these weekends off with a bang. It was an awesome, awesome grab on Wednesday. Then you got Marcus Ratcliffe out of San Diego State. Elko likes these big DBs. He's another big DB. This guy's probably going to play nickel or safety. That's what he's played before. He played in a 3-3-5. He was the middle safety there, but they brought him down to the line of scrimmage. He played a lot like Bryce Anderson or Antonio Johnson have for A&M in recent years. It's a great guy to get. He's young with experience. I believe he has 1 year. He was a freshman last year, and he started 11 games. So this is the kind of guy that you know how we felt when we lost Chase Basantis? Maybe Chase Basantis didn't have the best year, but the fact that as a true freshman, he had a full year of starting under his belt, you were really, really excited about his future. That's kind of what I feel about Marcus Ratcliffe, but at a slightly lower level of play at San Diego State. But still, those freshmen that have a full year of starting experience under their belt, those are really, really valuable pieces because you never know what they can do when they get into your program. And there's kind of a theme here. We'll talk about it as it goes along, but let me continue, and I'll bring up this theme here in a minute. Then it was Cal Poly cornerback Donovan Sanders, another big DB. Like I said, Elko likes big DBs. It's just what happens. He was recruited as a safety, played corner at Cal Poly, maybe overperformed for what was expected out of him coming out of high school. Just another good piece to get. And in this cornerback group, you're losing so many pieces. You were so lackluster there from the start. You really want guys like Donovan out of Cal Poly. You wanted guys like that to really fill that room up, and they just get a lot of shots in your Russian roulette bullet, if you will. You need to throw things at the wall to see what sticks with this corner room. You need to have open competition in camp at corner and find out who rises to the top. Maybe it's a Bravian Rogers. Maybe it's a Javen Thomas. Maybe it's someone that's already on the team. But maybe it's someone from outside. You don't know, but you need to form competition. You need to raise the level of everybody by doing that. And you need to have open tryouts, basically, for that spot because it's wide open. It was a huge question mark, a huge liability on the team this year. Cost A&M 2 games, straight up, in my opinion, in the Bama game and the Ole Miss games. Get as many corners as you can in here. Get other DBs in here and try them at corner and see what works. So even though this guy comes from an FCS school, I'm welcoming him in. I'm trying him out. He's got good size. He's overperformed so far in his career. Who knows what he can do? Now, this is one of my favorite guys we've gotten so far, the Troy wide receiver, Jabre Barber. I think it's Jabre is how you say it. It's Jabre. So he's a slot guy, smaller, 5'10", 175, has a lot of experience. I think he's an upperclassman. A theme throughout this, besides those first two guys, a theme throughout the rest of the names I'm going to list, they're all upperclassmen. They have really prioritized these guys who have at least 2 years under their belt of experience, but most of these guys have 3 years under their belt with 2 years of eligibility left, either because of COVID or redshirting. Jabre is an example of this. He's a senior. He's coming in. I believe this will be his 5th or 4th year, but he's a true senior. I think he only has 1 year of eligibility left. He had a bunch of receptions last year. He had about 1,000 yards receiving last year. He led the team in receptions and receiving at Troy. I don't think he has the skill set to be a day one starter, because I think that the receiver core that A&M has right now, you have a starting core there in Moose, in Noah, in Jade, and hopefully in Tease if he develops. But those three for sure, you can see those three starting and then going with a tight end. Jabre is in the rotation, in my opinion. He's a guy that you need to put in as a spell. He'll get maybe 10 to 15 snaps a game. I think he brings that from day one, and who knows what he can grow into throughout the year. Apparently, he has great off-the-line of scrimmage speed, maybe struggles a little bit with his footwork for his size, maybe not as crisp as you would hope. I'm excited to see what he can do in this system with Colin Klein and not having to be a starter, kind of be a change-of-pace kind of guy. Really exciting kind of receiver that this program really needed because, like I said, you had your top 4 guys, but you needed someone else that had brought some experience, that brought some pedigree, that could come in and play from day one. What if one of these guys go down? Well, Barber's the kind of guy that can go in and play for someone that goes down. So I'm excited to see a guy like this here. It's exactly what was needed in the position. You didn't need to go find a superstar. You didn't, because you have a really good chance with those top 3. Noah, Jade, Moose. Those guys could all be stars next year. You didn't need to go find one of those guys. You needed to find experience, and that's what you did here. You needed to find productivity, and that's what you did here. All right, another guy out of Troy, Derek Graham. The offensive lineman, he's played tackle, he's played guard, he's a versatile kind of guy. He's another senior with 2 years of eligibility left. Like I said, that'll be a theme going forward. He's 6'4", so like I said, he could play guard or tackle. Our O-line is looking very, very experienced going into next year. It's looking like a bunch of upperclassmen. And if we've learned anything over the last 6 years, and whether this is correlation or causation or what have you, in 2020, when you had a senior offensive line, that's when your offensive line was good. In 2018, you had some experienced players on that offensive line. You had a pretty good O-line. But all the other years, when the guys were either younger or just not as good, the less productive years featured fewer experienced O-linemen. Now, going into next year, all of a sudden, you have this transfer, Graham out of Troy, who brings upperclassman experience. Bryce Foster, upperclassman. Trey Zune, upperclassman. Naboo's going to be an upperclassman. Fathery, upperclassman. Crownover, upperclassman. You keep throwing these experienced players into that mix. You get rid of what most people thought was a negative in Steve Adazio. You bring in Cushing. You bring in a new offensive system. I am much more confident in this offensive line to take a step this year than I was last year. So this is another great piece. And Derek Graham's the kind of guy that can bring competition to that right tackle position. I think left tackle is pretty solid. I think Trey Zune's a great left tackle. But I think that right tackle, it needed either someone to go take it over or some competition there for Crownover and for Fathery if he's ever going to come back into form. I think it's safe to assume that Basantis is going to move back inside after seeing the bowl game where he did play inside. Then we get into a pair of Florida transfers, DB Jaden Hill and linebacker Scooby Williams. Jaden Hill, another pretty good sized DB, 6 foot, 195. Compared to Deuce Harmon last year, who was pretty small, although he was a really good coverage guy. It's nice to see some big guys. Obviously, Elko must like these big guys. It's just what he's targeting right now. It's just how it happened. But Jaden Hill started his career with an ACL tear. Didn't really get up to speed his first year or his second year, but he put a pretty decent year together last year with playing the star position. Versatile skill set, long arms for his size. He can play nickel, he can play corner. I think he's going to be one of those guys you try at corner and see what sticks. I think that's what you do with a guy like Jaden Hill. At 6 foot 195, he's kind of like that baseline ideal size for a corner. Florida guys will tell you he wasn't the best there. But that's what you're building something new here. It's a different cake. It's a different collection of ingredients. You want to try to bake the perfect cake. Maybe that ingredient didn't work at Florida. Maybe it'll work here. The same thing goes for Scooby Williams, who was actually rated pretty low by PFF. Reunited with Jay Bateman, A&M's now defensive coordinator. He was obviously the linebackers coach at Florida. Florida didn't have a good defense. Florida didn't have good production out of their linebackers. Although Florida was a pretty dysfunctional team last year, Scooby did still put up numbers. He was still productive, but he rated pretty low on PFF, and Florida fans will tell you that he wasn't the cleanest, the best player. But like I said, you just need to put pieces together on your team and bake your cake in your oven and see what you can do. You never know what a change of scenery can do, a change of philosophy, a new mindset, a new outlook, more experience compounding on itself. Let's give Scooby Williams a try. There are now a lot of names in this linebacker room, a lot of candidates to emerge as a starter next to Torian York. Although there's no clear, surefire guy, I'm starting to feel better and better about our chances of someone emerging as that guy next to Torian. And Scooby's a candidate there too, and he brings probably the most experience of that group outside of Torian. Now, as I was kind of getting to earlier, there was a second defensive line commit in this week of commits, and that is Wisconsin defensive tackle Rodis Johnson. Not the highest rated guy. Not a guy whose stat sheet's going to blow you away. But he is a guy with a ton of experience. He's another upperclassman. He's played a lot. He's had a lot of snaps. He started a bunch of games. Like I said, not a super explosive big play guy, but exactly what A&M needed at defensive line. A&M has a bunch of high-profile, badass defensive linemen now. You needed some experience to go in there and round out the rotation. I would not argue that Isaiah Rakes was like a blow you away with the film kind of player when you watched him play. But he was productive, he did his job, and he was always there when you needed him. I think Rodis Johnson can fill that Isaiah Rakes role. Do you guys agree with that? It's not a guy that's going to blow you away, but it's a guy that provides veteran leadership, stability in your rotation. I think a guy like this is perfect for what the D-line needed. Because the D-line I mentioned earlier, potentially Scorton, Shamar Turner, pick your other defensive tackle, and then Shamar Stewart at the other defensive end. you're not looking for replacements on that D-line. You're happy with that D-line. You're looking for guys that are willing to come in and be part of a rotation. And I think that's exactly what Rodis Johnson can be. Now, here's a guy that I'm actually pretty excited about out of UAB, BJ Mays. He played 2 years at Incarnate Word. He didn't play his freshman year. He played and he was pretty good his sophomore year, and he was really good at UAB with 41 tackles, 10 deflections, and 2 interceptions. 6'1", he's going to be a senior with 2 years of eligibility left. Yet another upperclassman, another big body, throwing things at the wall at his corner to see what sticks. I'm really excited to see this guy. I think he has a chance to emerge as a rotational guy just based on his trajectory. Another one of those guys that started in an FCS program. Is Incarnate Word still FCS? Whatever Incarnate Word is. And maybe overperformed, moved up to UAB, and now has a chance to become a player at Texas A&M. So it's a kind of guy that was underrated coming out of high school and has now made himself a little college career. So it's a guy I'm excited to see what happens with. And the last couple of offensive guys, Kansas offensive lineman, you're going to have to forgive me with the name, Armaj Reed Adams. I think it's Armaj. I think that's right. He was highly sought after in this portal class. He had visits scheduled to Ohio State, Oklahoma, Tennessee, but he only made it as far as Tennessee and A&M before ultimately committing to the Aggies. Yet another upperclassman with 2 years of eligibility left. He's 6'5". He's played guard. He's played tackle. Just fits the mold of what I was mentioning earlier about this offensive line. A bunch of experienced guys. You're going to have great battles for this offensive line starting 5 going into next year. Although you would think that maybe 4 or 5 of those guys have the upper hand in those battles, you're going to have a ton of options, man. And that's going to make these players that much better. I'm really excited about these 2 O-lineman grabs. And then the new one that just came out most recently, son of Emmitt Smith, E.J. Smith out of Stanford. A&M tried to recruit him before in Jimbo's regime, failed that time, but now they get him as an upperclassman. Exactly what you needed for this running back room. You're super excited about Reuben Owens, Le'Veon Moss. You know, Amari Daniels has had some tough moments, but he's also had some great flashes. You have 3 really, really promising running backs to throw into your rotation. And now you add a 4th guy that you desperately needed because you had literally nothing else besides walk-ons behind those 3. You needed a 4th scholarship running back. It would be dumb not to get one. And you get a damn good one in Emmitt Smith's son, E.J. Smith. So I don't know if he sees the field right away. I don't know if he makes it into the crowded rotation. But he has some good stuff on film. Not the most yardage, not the most production, but he did average over 5 yards a carry last year. So look out for him. I don't know if he'll play, but he's definitely the kind of guy that A&M needed in this running back room. Okay, so overall, obviously not a ton of high-profile blow-you-away guys. You're not getting Walter Nolan level players. You're not getting Evan Stewart level players. But the common theme of the guys that you have gotten are upperclassmen with 2 years of eligibility left that absolutely fit into this rotation or fit into this roster in some capacity. D-line, you didn't need a starter after you got Scorton, but you did need someone with experience to round out that rotation, and you got exactly that out of the D-tackle out of Wisconsin. At running back, you had 3 guys. You didn't need another starter level player. You didn't even need another rotation level player. You needed an emergency guy or a guy that maybe does fit situationally, and you got that in E.J. Smith. At corner, you got a bunch of dudes. You got a bunch of dudes you could try out. I will concede that corner is still looking scary because you don't know what the hell you're going to get. But you give yourself more chances by getting this many names and throwing it into the hat. Hopefully, someone emerges out of that room. I'm really excited about safety and nickel. You got to find out who that second linebacker is, but this defense is coming together, man. I'm already visualizing the D-line, the secondary. So, guys, I'm excited. I'm excited where this thing is going. You could have had less commits this week. You could have pushed things off till spring. We could have been going into next year with under 80 scholarship players. But the early rumblings were absolutely true. Elko was ready to play ball in this transfer portal era. And he is out there working tirelessly, building a roster, building a great coaching staff that we're all excited about, and giving Aggies that dreaded attribute of hope that we're oh so used to having this time of year. But this time, with a totally different outlook and a new man at the helm, Mike Elko is off to a great start as the head man at Texas A&M. I can't wait to give you guys the follow-up video to this video, giving you the next 6 or 7 names that he signs. Guys, things are looking up right now. A&M has momentum. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the long off season. We're just getting started. And I'll see you guys in the next video. So tune into my Wednesday live show. That's probably going to be the next time you see me. 8 p.m. Central. We have a lot of fun there. And if I have to, we get another batch of commits. I'll throw another video in before that. But if not, it'll probably come the next day. Regardless, thank you guys for being here today. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, and gig 'em.